I tend to be a fly by the seat of my pants homeschool mom, especially when they're younger.
I am a brand new mom to homeschooling, or at least brand new to unit studies. Take us through a unit study. How do we make this work? What does this look like in our family?
Okay, so what I did is I would, at the start of the week, I would typically for me it was Sunday afternoon or maybe even Monday morning. I tend to be a fly by the seat of my pants homeschool mom, especially when they're younger.
Yeah.
And so I would make a list of the things that I wanted to learn that week. And of course, we generally were using a prepared curriculum.
Hmm.
So if I was writing it myself, I would do a little bit more prep work. But with 5 in a row or whatever unit study you're using, I would open the manual and with 5 in a row in particular, and I think most unit studies are like this, there might be 3 science options for the book in particular, and I might only pick one of those. And then in 2 years, we might come back and do this book again and learn another one that happens to be a more developed topic or a more mature topic for when my kids are older. I also might do the more mature topic with my 9-year-old and not with my 5-year-old.
Hmm.
So sometimes that's another way to just individualize it for your children. So I would look at the beginning of the week at the study, the topics through the week that I wanted to learn, and that would be science, social studies, art, um, history, which is a little bit different than social studies. Social studies tends to be lots of interpersonal interaction, how
Hmm.
the kind of how groups of people have interacted with each other and things like that. And then history, of course, is just very specific events that have happened in history. There, you could do a character development, talk about how a child might be interacting with grandpa and how important those relationships are in our families. So, and then I kind of planned my week and just wrote down on which day I wanted to hit each of those topics. Then on Monday morning, I might have decided that math was going to be what we were going to do that day. So, again, off of 5 in a row, the way 5 in a row was designed was we read our book 5 days in a row, which is what is actually so fun about it.
Okay.
And this could be whatever your theme is, but with 5 in a row in particular, because it's attached to the story that you're reading it 5 days in a row. And that is where the actual title of the curriculum came from.
Okay.
So we would read our book each day. So we read our book. Couch time is always so great. So we pick up the book, we read through it, and then we decide what are we going to talk about that day. So
And can I interrupt really
yes,
quickly?
yes,
When you say you pick a book, basically like with 5 in a row, and of course that's not the only option,
right.
but that's what you used. And I actually have 5 in a row now, and it's fantastic. They give you a list of books in the, you know, in the beginning and say, these are all the books we're going to go through. So you're going to then go to the library or purchase that book.
Mhm.
I would say purchase the book, because the books that are usually suggested through any literature based unit study, I would assume, are books that you would want to have on your bookshelf anyway.
They're very high quality books and they're going to become your favorites.
Right.
So
Because you're
I've
going to
given
read them
away
over
a
and over
lot.
again.
Yeah, I've given away a lot of our books. We have all of our 5 in a row books still.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So sorry. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, no,
That
that's
you
a
were
great.
talking about. Yes. You're going to get whatever into your hands, whatever book you're going to use that week for the unit study. And
Yes.
you would typically do one book a week.
I typically did one a week
Okay.
and we kind of would do 3 books every 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then because sometimes you bleed into another week or there's a field trip that doesn't really happen
Sure.
at the right date or that week you've got several doctor's appointments and you just need a little bit extra to do. So that's kind of how we did it.
Okay.
Really, everybody can do what works for them. If you only can school 3 days a week, then that works for you. If it's all about what works for the family. So
Got it. Okay.
we would start by reading the book. And I did a lot of reading during mealtime because it was great for my kids when they were
Yeah.
sitting down. I also had a very active toddler when I was doing 5 in a row. So if she was buckled in, it gave us a lot more time to get a little bit of stuff accomplished with her not climbing all over things and
Right.
that kind of stuff. So we did a lot at mealtime or sitting on the couch during nap time, things like that. Well, during toddler nap time. So you read your story, and then on Monday, say we're going to pick the science topic. And for this week, so we're going to talk about Make Way for Ducklings. So I'll show it here for anybody watching. Robert and Cliff McCloskey, Make Way for Ducklings. It's a fabulous book. All Robert McCloskey books are so great.
Yes. They're so
So,
good.
so we would read the story, and then our topic might be ducks for this day. So that's our science.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot to learn about ducks, right? We can learn body parts about ducks. We can learn that ducks are buoyant. You can learn that they're waterproof. You can learn that they're actually birds. So there's a lot you can learn. There's more than maybe you don't want to learn all that in one day. Maybe you want to take a couple of days. So science might spread out into a couple of days. And then one thing I think that's important to note about science is when you're learning that an animal is buoyant or something like that, it's not necessarily that you're learning it only about birds. What you're learning is, so right now we might be learning about ducks for this time, but we're learning that ducks have feathers. All birds have feathers. So you're learning about the animal kingdom,
Yeah.
and your children will apply that to other animals
Hmm.
without you having to teach it as a very specific skill. So sorry, I got derailed on that one.
No, that's
So
okay.
we are going to read this storybook, and then I have gotten some other books from the library or found a couple of YouTube videos on specific characteristics that God created in ducks. What makes a bird a bird? We'll learn about buoyancy. You might learn about a ball floating to the top and when that a rock might sink. So that might be your hands on activity for learning about buoyancy. So that might be the science lesson for that day. And then that might be the end of your learning for that day. You've read your story, you've done some hands on activity. With your 9-year-old, you might learn how to spell the word buoyant because that's not an easy one to remember how
Yeah.
to spell. And then you've also read some about ducks and learned some body parts or characteristics. So that would be your science day. And then you would go on and do your formal math or formal reading, anything else you needed to do for your day. And then the next day, you would read the story again or look through your theme, whatever is, kind of your anchor for the week. And in Make Way for Ducklings, the Mr. and Mrs. Mallard are walking through Boston with their ducklings behind them. That's what it's called, Make Way for Ducklings. So the whole thing, if you haven't ever read this book, it's Mr. and Mrs. Mallard walking all the way through Boston, and the people in Boston are making way for the ducklings as they are migrating. So one of the things that you might do the next day is, so this book is great for geography, which is why it's one of my favorites to talk about with a literature study because there's so much in it. So one of the things that you could do is find a map of Boston.
Hmm.
That now it's easy to find a map, right? We just go to Google Maps or
Right.
open up, if you happen to have a good old atlas, an official road atlas. So what you can do is you might have, so you learn about maps and you could hold your GPS and let your child see when you're walking down the street, your dot is actually moving on the map.
Hmm.
And then we could remind children that we didn't have that when we were little and we
Right.
actually had to read the map. But they can see where they are in space and that Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were walking through Boston, making, that you could actually walk the route if you lived near Boston or wanted to go there for a field
Yeah.
trip. So then your child, after knowing that they went on a very specific route through Boston, you could trace that route on a map. And then you could also have your child draw a map. Maybe their neighbor lives 4 doors down the street and they might draw a one simple my house, 3 houses between, and then my neighbor's house. And then they've drawn a little map that is just 4 houses down the street. Or maybe to go to church, they cross the street and then they go down and turn left. And that might be their map for a child like that. So you can make your map as complicated as you want it to be. And then you've learned the way they went, they followed a map, and then you wrap it up by your child drawing a map. So we understand the whole purpose of maps and recording and that kind of stuff.
Oh my goodness. So fun.